Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and also a belated New Year. And in this video we're going to talk about whether our travel horizons have reduced. If there is one impact the pandemic has had, it's that my travel horizons seem to have shrunk. I can't be the only one thinking this way. Okay, before we get started, it's worth pointing out that during the life of preparing this video, I've changed it 3 times due to the ever-changing variant and the travel situation. That pretty much sums up where I am with travel at the minute. You never really know where you're at, but let's get into some deeper thoughts. I have a number of travel ideas floating around in my head that if this was 2019, I would have moved to being actively planning them by now. Because that's what we used to do, right? Travel was easy. Travel was really frictionless. One of the great things about my life during the latter half of the last decade was my ever-expanding travel horizons. I like to say that my simple, introverted self went from the standard holidays of things like Disney World and possibly the odd all-inclusive resort to more adventurous things that I'd not considered before, like driving around the Canadian Rockies or exploring the Jungfrau region of Switzerland via hikes, trains and cable cars. The challenge now, I feel I should be restarting international travel in 2020, but I feel my travel horizons and the impetus to push them has sort of diminished. This is primarily because I've not accepted the new normal of travel. Hell, let's admit it, I hadn't even accepted what looked like was becoming the new normal, and then Omicron shows up. All the rules change, travel bans are reintroduced, cruise ships are turned away from ports, dogs and cats living together, absolute chaos. I'm still holding on to the last mythical vestiges of being able to jump on a plane at a moment's notice and travel halfway around the world and cross multiple borders with a simple piece of hand luggage. I'd really started to enjoy that facet of what was modern life before it came to an end. Anyway, let's consider some of these travel ideas. First, doing the big Switzerland train journeys during the winter, specifically the Grand Rail Tour, using the Glacier Express, and I'm about to say it wrong, the Bernina Express, and the Golden Pass Panoramic, with 2 to 3 night stops in places like Lucerne, the Jungfrau region and Zermatt. I wasn't really keen on going to Switzerland in the winter, as I'm not a skier. But I've come around to the idea that there's hikes open, you can go tobogganing. Let's face it, there is a high chance I'd have had this booked by now and in place and be building up to going in the first quarter of 2022, if it wasn't for the pandemic. Second is Alaska. Regulars on here and on Twitter will know Alaska has been a target for a while, but I've transitioned from doing only a cruise to thinking bigger. Fly into Vancouver, maybe do some city stuff, though that's not really my thing. Fly from there to Anchorage, do the inland Alaska thing for a week or so, then make my way towards Seaward to then get a cruise, a 7-day one back to Vancouver. Because there are Alaska experiences best seen from a cruise, and then fly home from the airport I flew in from. In times gone by, this would have moved definitely to being actively planned by now. But the book I got on Alaska and the idea currently sits on a shelf. I'd love to do a transatlantic cruise, partly just so I can say I have. The sort of challenge of it is appealing, but that's another video. I may even have done this by now if it wasn't for COVID, as there was some really sweet deals in the latter half of last year. The challenge is it's a long time on a ship for an outbreak to take hold. And these cruises have multiple ports in multiple countries, which creates the whole multiple tests and crazy restrictions on what you're allowed to do in each port. I've heard of people just not being able to get off the ship, ships being turned away from ports, which is happening again recently, or being stuck on one of these bubble cruises where you have to take the cruise line's excursions under a very restricted sort of regime. It's something that could become, let's face it, very unfun very quickly. I am currently keeping an eye on a 2023 back-to-back cruise that allows me to do a transatlantic from New York to Iceland and then immediately get on the same ship to go from Iceland to the UK via Norway. It'd also be on the Norwegian Cruise Line's newest ship, which is very appealing. I mean, you never know. It's 2023. I've not booked it. I'm keeping an eye on it. It's a year away. It might happen. So despite thinking I might dip my toes into international travel in 2022, my leaning at the moment is it actually might not happen. I'm not saying it won't happen, but if it did, I think my aspirations would shrink and I'd focus on going to a single country and coming back to reduce all of the border risks, as the risks at multiple borders are just too high. The rules could change, everything could shift, and you could find yourself stuck in a country for too long. I'll put the question out there. Are you planning to undertake international travel again in 2022? What does that look like for you? And do you think your travel aspirations have grown or shrunk over the course of the pandemic?